welcome to the Libertarian Listener with me, Chris Wilkinson. In today's show, I have with me the UK Liberty Party's party leader, Kevin BRUNS. He's going to be talking to us about the UK Liberty Party, as well as the new lockdown restrictions, the COVID economy, and post-Brexit trade. First thing that's on the agenda for today is the UK Liberty Party itself. There are many pro-liberty political parties in the UK, so what makes the UK Liberty Party stand out from the crowd?
I think actually the way we arrive at what liberty is and what it means politically definitely makes us stand out, because we base it politically on your political freedom, and your political freedom is based upon your rights. And we have a very distinct concept of rights. So I think that follows through and makes what liberty is very different as well. I think that the way we approach things means that this is the liberty that everybody thinks they mean, but they don't arrive at it at the right way, which then creates its own downfall eventually, which is what we're seeing playing out today.
So like so many other parties, you have an online store to sell your official merchandise, but you must be the only political party in the country to sell your own tea and coffee blends. Is there a story to tell behind that?
There is, actually. I used to run a charity helping people with cystic fibrosis. And one of the ways that we actually raise funds was, rather than just keep saying, give us money, give us money, give us money, we developed our own range of tea, which we call Charity. TEA, and that was a really good seller, and obviously we made a decent profit on it month after month after month. So when I was looking at how to finance the party without having to rely on members, because there's lots of parties out there that people can go and join, and they all want this membership and etc. And I thought, well, how can we actually grow the party without relying on members joining? So one of the ways we come up with the store. And then I thought, well, how can we keep repeat support going? And that's when I thought, I'll do what we did in the charity. And then I thought, well, everybody likes coffee as well, so we'll have coffee as well. So that's how it came about, basically. And it's proven we actually earn more from the coffee than we earn from our memberships at the moment.
I must just say, for the avoidance of doubt, that there are other things available than the tea and coffee.
Yes, there are. Yeah,
just for anyone who's left.
Head on over.
So could you talk to us about your unique approach to party policy making through the MAPS system? Well,
for those that don't know, MAPS is make a policy system, or make a proposal system, I should say more clearly. Basically, I'm a one-man band, and I don't have all the answers to all the questions. I've got plenty of questions, not all the answers. So again, I thought, how can I utilize other people? I don't want people just joining, giving their money, and you must support us, and here's what we're doing. I wanted members to be able to go, hold on, this would be a good idea, and be able to propose that to everybody, and then all the other members can vote on it. At this moment in time, it's not that huge because we're not a huge party. But as we grow, then I think that lends us to make lots of policies that members really get behind and really stand for, and then thus they'll be willing to promote to outside of the parties, for the people they know, etc., because they've got a hand in promoting them and informing them. That gives them an incentive.
So what is stepping stones, and what can the UK Liberty Party representatives offer members by way of advice and campaigning experience for those looking to stand for election?
Stepping stones is basically, how do we get from where we are with our system of governance to where what we see as where we want to be, because there's no way that a party like ours, as small as ours, is going to be in power tomorrow and then say, right, this is how we're doing it. So this is a thing that will take time. And once you're in government, you can't just overnight say, well, we're stopping this, we're stopping that, we're bringing this in, we're bringing that in. You have to gradually disassemble everything that's been gone before to replace with the new things. And people don't like overnight change. They may agree with ideas and they may think it's a good idea, but they don't want to see it tomorrow because they've got too much of their life invested in what already is. Things like welfare. You can't just be a Liberty Party and come in and go, we're stopping welfare, because you're ruining people's lives by doing that. So everything has to be a gradual phasing out. We see politics as a result of our philosophy. And the cultural philosophy is a result of everybody's individual philosophies. So we want to encourage or advocate for our individual philosophy, that enough people go, there's something to this, this would make things better for me. And they take that idea, and then obviously you form a government and you put those ideas into practice. Basically, a liberty-focused government would be a government that gets rid of most of government.
So as it is a smaller party that's been going for over 4 years now, is the UK Liberty Party well placed to seize upon the growing disenchantment with mainstream politics, as evidenced by the strongly authoritarian and totalitarian events of this year?
I wish I could say yes. It's not just because we're small that is the issue. It's because the ideas are what I call radical. They really are radical ideas. They're not, you couldn't call them conservative, you couldn't call them libertarian. They are just completely radical ideas, and people aren't ready. I'll be dead before you see a liberty-focused government in power doing anything. The goal isn't just to be in power, because that's pointless. We've seen what happens historically. People just want power. They don't want it for anybody else but them to do stuff. So we don't want to do that.
So the first topic for today is on the lockdown restrictions. I've got a quote from the Metro here, which says, Boris Johnson is set to scrap the 10 p.m. curfew on pubs and restaurants when lockdown ends on December 2nd. It is understood opening hours will be extended until 11 p.m. in a major boost for the hard-hit hospitality industry. The COVID winter plan is expected to place more areas into the higher tiers to keep the virus under control and to ensure further restrictions are not needed, Number 10 said. Now, is it another example of self-defeating government policy? And what are your thoughts on this? Because pubs can open for an extra hour, but the restrictions the government is placing on people going out is getting stricter.
I think what they're doing with the getting rid of the 10 o'clock curfew is they're making 11 o'clock and they're making last orders 10. So they're hoping the dispersal of people won't all happen at 10 o'clock. Obviously, who could have foreseen that if you make everybody leave at 10, there'll be crowds of people at 10 o'clock? I mean, no one was ever to know.
Which doesn't really make any sense anyway, because it's going to affect only the people that are going out anyway.
Yeah.
And, if they're going around and spreading this here, there and everywhere, apparently, as we're so being told, then it's not really going to stop that from happening if you just move it to an hour later.
All its governance is contradiction, because that's all it can do. It's built on contradiction. You can't have a government that we all think, it protects our rights, and then allow it to violate those same rights. That in itself is a contradiction.
So I've got a different Metro source here that says coronavirus rules could be relaxed from December the 22nd to the 28th nationwide, but the country may have to live under tough restrictions both before and after the festive period to make this possible. It had been thought rules would be relaxed from Christmas Eve and cover only the most important festive dates, but Chancellor Rishi Sunak is understood to have been pushing for several days' worth of freedoms to ensure pubs and restaurants can make enough money. Now, it's widely expected, pretty much by everybody now, that this Christmas is going to be unlike any other since the war. And given the willingness to intensify measures but reluctance to relax them, might we effectively be in lockdown conditions significantly into next year? And what are the implications on social life and the economy, considering that the biggest trading period of the year is now a total write-off for so many small and medium businesses?
Again, it shows the contradictions that government come up with. This virus is so infectious and so bad for so many people, yet you can have Christmas together, as long as you're willing to pay the price in further lockdowns. So again, that's a contradiction. Everything they do is just wrong from the get-go. They haven't done one thing right. And this is another example of it. They don't care about small businesses. I mean, the Conservatives traditionally are supposed to be free trade, small business champions, etc., and they're not. Bankruptcies are up, job losses are up, livelihoods are ruined, all for saving the NHS. Flatten the curve for 2 weeks. Well, they're now turning that into a year. If they, like they say, by spring we should be out of it. Well, that's a year of life no one's ever getting back. So they'll decimate the economy, they'll decimate people's lives. Suicide, I think it was the London Ambulance Service said that the suicide rate calls had gone up by about 36% per day. And it's just ridiculous. They're playing with people's lives, and what they're doing is sacrificing one group of people to another group of people. and that's all they do.
Yeah.
That's government for you. It's what it's always done. That's what we've allowed it to do.
Are you quite surprised that some of the people who are most in favour of meeting their families at Christmas are also the same people that are adhering to the lockdown and adhering to social distancing so almost religiously? Again, I think it's another of the contradictions there, as you rightly point out.
Yeah.
But are you just surprised at the duplicity of people like that?
Yes, I am, but I'm used to that kind of contradiction in people's thought, because most of the culture has the same philosophy. They have the same basic idea of what constitutes the good and what constitutes the bad. It's why everybody's wearing a mask for somebody else to protect others, because that's what's important in society. It's the others, the poor, the sick, the elderly, etc. I mean, I've got cystic fibrosis. When my lungs were well enough, I used to wear a mask. Now, I was never encouraged to wear the mask to stop viruses, because I was told they don't work to stop viruses. You're wearing it to stop pollutants. So things like smog and car exhaust and all that sort of stuff. That's why I used to wear a mask. For the 2 years that I did wear one, I would go shopping and I would get ridiculed. I would get people staring and pointing and saying, "What you got a mask on for?" Now, those same people are all walking around in masks going, "Where's your mask?" Why is the standard of value that you live under somebody else? You know, you should live for you. Your life is yours. And government doesn't believe that. And sadly, too many people don't believe that.
I've tentatively called this section the COVID economy. I don't want it to sound too mainstream or anything like that. I've got a quote from the BBC here that says Chancellor Rishi Sunak is to announce an extra £3 billion for the NHS, but has warned that people will soon see an economic shock laid bare as the country deals with the COVID pandemic. Mr. Sunak said COVID's impact on the economy must be paid for, and high levels of borrowing could not go on indefinitely. The Treasury said the £3 billion package for the NHS would help tackle backlogs in the health service, with thousands of treatments and operations delayed because of the pandemic. The number of people waiting a year for treatment has risen from about 1,500 in February to 140,000 in September. So with the national debt nudging 2.1 trillion, taxes and unemployment rising, do you think the public are going to stomach the government's failed left-wing fiscal stimulus plans, which will funnel a lot of money into large corporations but do absolutely nothing to smaller businesses who are struggling to keep afloat?
I think too many of the public will stomach it.
Yeah.
There's a growing unease. Well, I don't think there's enough unease where people will rise up. I think it actually needs businesses to start saying, we're not doing it en masse. The individual businesses that have been doing it, mainly some gyms over the past weeks, they're no good on their own. They all need to get together and say, look, this whole street, we won't shut. This whole shopping mall, we won't shut. Let them come in with their guns and shut us down by force. We're not just going to roll over and take it. Unless that happens, I don't think the general public will have enough bile. They won't feel it in the pit of their stomachs. I think that will come 6 to 9 months' time. Once the furlough's gone, once they realise they haven't got a job to go back to, once they default on their mortgage, once their local amenities are being cut back that they're used to, once their car payments can't be made, once it really hits them in the pocket, I think then yes, you could garner a lot more support for actual people protesting, saying we're not going to take this. I don't think there's enough people in the UK that have got the mettle. They haven't got the mettle for the fight. You see lots of other countries, they're being pounded by their police. They're basically getting beat up by the police that are supposed to protect them. I don't think in this country there's enough people that would just go, we're not taking this, and would fight back. I think you'll get the odd, maybe 100,000 people, but it needs tens of thousands of people on the streets saying, we're not putting up with it anymore. And I don't think there's enough people with that mettle, with that real hatred of what's going on for that to happen.
you mentioned the gyms there. There's obviously been in the news that one gym owner who's refused to shut during the lockdown and things like that. Has it not really occurred to businesses that they could probably take on the £10,000 fine that they're going to be given, but also make a hell of a lot more if they actually stayed open to trade? Yeah. Because they'd make that back in a day for a typical department store like that. Yeah. Yeah. It just seems to be almost a giving up of the free market and sort of enterprising ideals. We now have businesses that are willing to kowtow to the demands of the state.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. And I think the problem is that business, whatever size, is controlled by government.
Yeah.
The government controls all the regulations, all the laws, everything that a business can do, they need permission for. So they're used to jumping through hoops. And this is just another hoop for them to jump through. There's very few business people that tie their business freedom in with their personal freedom. They don't seem to make that connection. And that's why there's only been a few businesses say, hold on, we're not doing this. This is completely wrong, because they don't tie the two together. They think that their personal freedom is a separate issue to their business. Yeah. And it's not. They're the same thing. Without one, you don't have the other. And they don't see that. And again, that's a failing of ideas over time. But that's an issue of government again, which is why that one of the things that we're keen is to separate government and the economy completely, like church and state, and for the same reasons. The only reason that their big business cozy up to government is because they're there to be cozied up to. They make the rules. You know, it's like trying to bribe the ref. He's the guy that can give you the foul and make or disallow a goal. He's the guy that you need to have in your pocket. It's the same with government. They're the people you need in your pocket if you're a big business. Smaller businesses can't cope with that. It's like people moaning about Amazon has made a fortune in the lockdown.
Yeah.
That's not Amazon's fault. What are they to do? Sorry, we're not trading just because the others can't trade. It's not an Amazon problem. It's a government problem.
Yeah.
Again, people blaming Amazon comes from the ideas that all big business must necessarily be corrupt. And that's not the case. That's to do with the bashing of capitalism over decades. And the education system teaches people that money just appears. MMT theory, you know, well, there's wealth and all we have to do is decide who gets how much of it. They don't teach them. They're actually, your natural state is poverty.
Yeah.
The question is what gets you out of poverty, and that's capitalism, trading with people. That's what gets you from being poor to having a life, to sustain your life. And that's not taught in schools. People just think, well, the country's rich. Where's my share?
They've sort of made fantasy a reality as well, because they have literally been printing money and magicking it up out of it's suddenly come out of nowhere.
I mean, Rishi Sunak blaming COVID for the economic strife that is about to happen in the next 6 to 9 months, I reckon, is ludicrous. It's just passing the buck. He's not a silly man. He must know that his policies are the problem, not the virus. It's his reaction to the virus, or government's reaction to the virus, that's caused every economic, every livelihood, every business problem there is has been caused by government diktat, not by the free market, which will get the blame. In a year's time, it'll be the free market failed, capitalism failed. We didn't have it. It didn't fail. You beat it to death. It's a completely different thing.
The number of excess deaths that we've had during this year is truly horrendous. And we've got deaths from cancer and heart disease vastly outstripping the deaths from COVID. And you've got suicide and starvation and declining mental health, really serving as a shocking reminder of the recklessness of draconian statist policies, as we've mentioned there. Yeah. Has the experience of this year proven that the government's approach of ends justifying the means is both heartless and anti-human? And why do you think that so many people are still wedded to the idea that the government is there to support you, and the idea of intensifying measures such as wearing masks and the lockdown and continuing social distancing in the face of such terrible evidence?
because, like government, most people agree that the ends justifies the means.
Yeah.
They don't see that government are doing anything wrong because they agree that the ends justifies the means, or what is more commonly called the greater good. People agree with it, whether explicitly or implicitly. They've absorbed it from the wider culture over time, and it's ingrained. So eventually your thinking becomes automatic in that regard. You go, oh, it's for the, you don't say to yourself, it's for the greater good, or the ends justifies the means, because that becomes so ingrained in you that when a decision comes up, it's automatic. Oh yes, this must be correct. And enough people don't stop and think, oh, is this correct?
Yeah.
Should we be doing this? Should I be doing this? Is this what is best for me? You know, it's to do with the altruism and the sacrifice, and somebody is more important than you. Your life is not worth as much as somebody else. Look at the poor, you know, that nebulous group of the poor. Who are they? Why are they poor? What, you know, what's happened in their life? What decisions did they make? What choices did they make that led them to being poor? You didn't just happen to be poor.
Yeah.
What did you do? And there's no responsibility, and everybody's blameless. The implicit assumption is nothing. They were just oppressed. They're a victim. It wasn't their fault. Or I'm sorry, but some people make rubbish decisions and end up with rubbish results. Garbage in, garbage out. And we've now got a culture where people are accepting that whatever's wrong with you, whatever life you've got, is not your fault. When you accept that for people that are poor, that are sick, that are homeless, you then accept that for rich people or people that are successful, and you go, they didn't achieve that. That's not theirs. It's the same thought process that allows you to support the vulnerable and destroy the successful and the able. And again, that's altruism. The other is more important, and they're rich because they're poor. Thus, the solution is we take what they've got and give it to them. It's all in the same thing. It's sacrifice. It's the end that justifies the means. It's collectivism. It really is the destruction of man. You know, the guy that created the atomic bomb said he is the destroyer of man. No, collectivism is the destroyer of man. It will do far more, and has done far more damage than any nuclear bomb.
So the final topic for today is on post-Brexit trade. What's your view on the UK's trading relationship with the wider world after December the 31st? And do you think that an EU deal is in the best interests of Britain, or should we go WTO?
I think government should be prohibited from trading with anybody. I think it's businesses and individuals that trade. However, until we reach that point and government does have a say, then yeah, we should trade freely with the rest of the world. There should be no tariffs. There should be basically no barriers to trading with everybody else. The only thing that I would consider a barrier is if a country is your enemy. They've threatened your citizens, or they've taxed you, or whatever, then a sanction, I would go with a sanction on that. And citizens I would say, we can't buy from this country because they're basically attacking us. But apart from that, trade with whoever. And it should be the citizen's choice, not the government's choice as to who you trade with, other than somebody you're at, not war, but on the verge, as it were. Should we leave on WTO from the EU? No.
Got another quote, this time from The Independent. The UK and Canada have agreed a rollover deal to continue trading under existing terms as the current EU agreement when the Brexit transition period ends, the government has announced. The agreement will continue a settlement already agreed between the EU and Canada in the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, and does not give any new benefits to UK businesses. However, the government insisted it avoids the estimated £42 million in tariffs for businesses if negotiators had failed to secure a deal before the end of the Brexit transition period next month. Now, doesn't this announcement help discredit the claims that were made by Project Fear that started back in 2016 and substantiate the fact that we wouldn't be significantly worse off as a country after all is said and done? I mean, the free market does, after all, work. And does it provide an indication as to the kind of tariff-free trade that Britain can expect to achieve after the transition period ends?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
So the Project Fear thing. I think that there will still be, if we leave on WTO, there will still be an economic shock, far greater than need be, purely because of the additional hoops that businesses will need to jump through as a third country in trading with the EU. Trading with Canada, they were never going to put huge tariffs on us. We were never going to put huge tariffs on them, if any, and vice versa. So I don't think that is an issue. It's just a government to say, yay, look how great we are. You know, if they were great, we wouldn't have the shambles we've had in the last 2 years, 3 years with all their shenanigans with Brexit. They're not a great government. They don't have a clue. They shouldn't be involved. I'm pretty sure that the people of Canada could trade with us if they wanted to, and we could trade with them if we want to.
It's almost like a pat on the back, really, isn't it, for a government that hasn't really done anything, but is self-congratulatory in achieving nothing.
Yeah. Yes, it is exactly that. And it's bravado. It's everything that the Department of Trade has done in the last few years has just been bravado. You know, you've got Liz Truss all the time saying, oh, we've got this deal, we've got that deal. It's just noise. In the big scheme of things, what they're doing is just noise. Because what they're trying to do is take away attention from the storm that is coming. Yeah. And it will come, because they've mishandled it so badly.
So the Independent furthermore said, the Department for International Trade added the settlement with Canada secured this weekend paves the way for negotiations to begin in the new year on a comprehensive trade deal with Canada, which Brexiteers have touted as a benefit of leaving the bloc. Now, the arrangement is to continue on existing terms only for now. So do you believe that we will be aligned with the EU by way of trade and regulations for a significant period after the end of this year, since full trade deals will naturally take longer to develop, whether or not we agree with them? And what do you believe the economic implications of this will be for business confidence and obviously inward investment into industries?
God, I think it goes back to the last question, really.
Yeah.
I think they're non-issues. They're obscuring what's going to happen in the big picture. If we leave on WTO, there will be an economic shock. There will be a business fallout shock. Obviously, the supply chains, third country status, if we're WTO, there's so much that we will be missing that we spent 40 years politically and economically integrating into the EU. You can't take that apart sensibly in the time that we've had. It just cannot be done. They poo-pooed from day one what I consider the ideal option would have been, which is the Flexit from Pete North and his dad, Richard North. That would have been the ideal. That would have created a murmur of issues rather than the tsunami that we will face in the next 18 months to 5 years. There's some tough times coming. And I'm a Brexiteer through and through, because I'm a free trader. I'm a laissez-faire capitalist. But like our Stepping Stones program, you cannot undo all that damage so quickly without causing further damage. And it's just naive to think that you can.
I was going to say, because I mean, again, it goes back to the government's handling of Brexit and things like that. Do you think that businesses, I mean, you almost picked up on it there, the idea that businesses haven't really had the time to prepare, do you think that the government has given them the clarity and the certainty and things that they would need to plan ahead? No,
our government haven't. The EU have. The EU issue stakeholder notices all the time of what's going to happen. And what they're prepared to do and not prepared to do, and what the rules and regulations are. So businesses that know where to look within the EU structure will have all the information they need. The issue is our government has done hardly anything other than posture.
Yeah,
it seems to think they're a duel at dawn. That's what they seem to think negotiation is about, and it isn't a negotiation in the traditional sense, which is, I think, one of the big mistakes. Is the framing of Brexit was it's an us versus them, i.e. us versus the EU, and we'll negotiate and we'll hold them down to this. No, there was a whole set of rules that everybody operated by. And to untangle all that takes time and skill. And our government just doesn't have it. You know, we're now repatriating competencies that don't exist in this country anymore. We're flying by the seat of our pants because we haven't done it for 40 years. So there's going to be huge mistakes coming up.
On top of the ones that are already there.
Yeah.
For other issues.
I think next 18 months to 5 years, there'll be lots of issues coming up.
Right, so the final question is, do you think we will leave this year with or without a deal on the UK's future relationship with the EU? I
have no idea whatsoever.
That's a wonderful confident certainty to end the show on. All right, it's been a joy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And that's all for this edition of the Libertarian Listener. Remember, we're on social media, and don't forget to check out our website, thelibertarianlistener.com. Next week, I have with me Will Taylor, so you'll have that to look forward to. And until then, thanks for listening.